Okay, hey, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today we have a great review for you from the brand Seiko. Originally founded back in 1881, they are Japanese in origin and now have factories throughout Asia. They cover all market segments from entry level to high end. And in terms of the type of watch, I'd consider this an everyday watch. Some key characteristics in design language, you're looking for something that can be worn every day. You're really just going to be looking for that versatile blend of sporty and dressy attributes. Now, this particular model has really been known for that great balance of sporty and dressy. This is the Prospex Alpinist SPB355J1 Rock Face European Limited Edition. This is limited to only 3,000 pieces and is sold exclusively out of Europe. It's an adventurer's watch extension of the original line that dates all the way back to the late 1950s. And it is really signature for having this beautifully textured silvery dial with blue contrasting accents. It also comes with two different strap options, one kind of matching gray canvas as well as one contrasting blue leather, both with their own signed deployment clasps, so you don't have to fumble with those when you're switching between straps. I purchased this particular watch from seriouswatches.com for $764, about that much euro, and that is excluding VAT because I am outside of the out of Europe. So although I believe this pre-order is currently sold out, I'm not sure if they'll have another batch or another run, but definitely check the links down below. Also, if you're interested, Serious Watches also stock all of your favorite other Seikos, as well as some of the most desirable independent and micro brand models out on the market, many of which that have even been featured here on the channel. So absolutely check them out, and big shout out to them for being able to kind of get this piece in my hand. It's much appreciated, especially as for somebody that's located in North America. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, guys, what a piece. Let's get to the main event, which is this dial. Check that out. I'll just give a moment of silence for this. Really beautifully done and extremely legible. I know that's been a complaint for many of the predecessors within the Alpinist line in terms of legibility overall when you start getting things reflecting on these high polished indices. Here you're going to see, of course, blue being used, which is really keeping, even at different angles, really ultimately legible. Another key feature that was addressed here is the bezel. It is actually brushed, yes. I know a lot of the times the bezel has appeared brushed in some of the renders, but I've never seen an Alpinist with the brushed bezel, at least in this body style. So really beautiful, and happy that they finally did that. I think it's something that kind of has been undersold about this release because it's something that a lot of collectors have been really pining for. In terms of comparables, I will definitely compare this to every other Seiko Alpinist that I have, which is quite a few, in a later segment, because I do want to keep this video more focused and on track, because we are going to be covering different strap options as well as even a bracelet option. For those of you who can't wait, bracelet option here. Okay, so that's the bracelet, and it's going to be nice, and it's something that I featured on my blue US exclusive Alpinist. So looking forward to getting this same bracelet on this one, because I think it definitely has a similar kind of dressy attribute. And then, of course, yeah, you think about these types of dials, you do think Grand Seiko, so it's nice to kind of dress that up just a touch, especially when you do have, out of the box, some really great functional straps. In terms of the dimensions, guys, this is actually the same case that you've seen on other Prospex Alpinists, to include watches that I've, have reviewed here and owned. So 39.5 millimeters across. It is 13.2 millimeters thick and 46.3 millimeters lug to lug. It's brushed and polished stainless steel, and it's pretty much the same dimensions as that original SARB 017 JDM green and gilt, that really kind of set off the popularity popularity of these watches. I think internationally around the world, it's always been a very niche thing, but those SARB 017s were really great and instrumental, as well as, of course, the blue US limited edition SPB089, which was released a few years before they brought it back under the under the Prospex branding. So it's pretty much the same thing as those. It does have a slightly thicker case back to accommodate for that display case back window that you can see, and it's basically adds 1 millimeter of thickness. So before, these were 12.2 millimeters, and now they're 13.2 millimeters thick, and I think it's totally a fine trade-off, especially here in this case, because you do get the limited edition kind of print on there, and then you also do get etched in there the number. So this is number 231 of 3,000 that were made, and this is made in Japan, so this is a J1 watch. So really great, you know, all those happy things. In terms of the movement, yes, 6R35, 70-hour power reserve, 3 hertz sweep, accuracy range in between -15 and +25, but of course it's running much better than that for me. I mean, most of my 6R movements I find are in between ±2 to 3 seconds a day. This one seems to be running even better, so lucky me. But again, I can't try to sell the watch on the accuracy because ultimately it is unregulated. Now, in terms of the bezel, apart from, of course, the outer bezel being brushed, which is great, you also do have this anthracite gray inner rotating bezel here, compass bezel, as you can see, that moves. It has these nice pale blue contrasting markings, as well as of various other shades of silvers and grays that are there that I think blend to make it kind of disappear when you need it to, and then are still legible enough to take a look at and read when you are looking to use, you know, the bezel complication, you know, in any case. So when we get into the dial, these are beautifully polished raised indices with that nice blue coating. The Seiko logo is applied, which is great. So that's probably the only thing in terms of shock you might have to worry about knocking out. You don't have to worry about any of these indices because they are pressed through the back. And that Seiko logo, I've never seen anybody knock it hard enough to make that pop off. So you should be really good in terms of if you really want to wear this thing at a really rugged capacity and really use it for what it's designed to be used for. Now, the dial has that beautiful textured silvery gray, you know, detail to it, which is really nice, and you can see very fine. I will say more fine than you would typically experience in watches that are in the Prospex line, because there have been a lot of special edition Prospex watches, and typically I will say that the dial texturing on those special editions isn't quite this sharp. This is definitely on the higher end of what you're going to see, similar to what you might see maybe on some higher end Presage models that have similarly kind of frosted style texturing on the dial. It's almost moon-like because of just the shade of gray that you have here, which is really nice. Rock face, so it's meant to be like a stone's face there, and I definitely see that parallel as well. You do still get the date underneath a nice date magnifier, which does its job. You can see much bigger number 3 than you would see if you were looking at it from down here. So I don't mind a date magnifier, especially on a watch like this. It's already quirky, it's already busy, it has so much going on already. Again, it's not like that's going to be breaking up the symmetry here, because this is really an asymmetrical type of watch. Now, it does still have the lume pips that are going to be all around the outer chapter ring there. That is going to have that, you know, indexing for, you know, basically the breakdown, as you see the second sweep beautifully past there. So this is by no means a lume monster, but it does have really nice lume on the handset, as well as those plops, which do the job, although not a lot of surface area from that perspective. Now, this does have 20 bar or 200 meters of water resistance, which is fantastic. You're getting 20 millimeter lugs, which make this really versatile in terms of straps. I've done, you know, strap highlights, showcases for the standard Alpinist. So if all those same things would apply, but of course to a new colorway. This gray canvas textile strap is really nice, and you can see it has the full stitching all the way up and down, versus here you're just going to be getting the accent stitching also in a shade of gray over that nice beautiful dark blue. And this definitely has a nice feel to it, very supple and soft, although a little thick, still definitely very pliable. And if you haven't and you were looking forward to seeing the box and everything, that I actually did do a live stream of that, so check the channel history if you haven't. I forget if I mentioned that or not yet, but if you're looking for the box and the presentation, all that, that's there for you. You know, let's get into really quickly just one last little detail. These are the same deployant buckles that are going to be on there. You basically hit the button here, you pop that up, you're going to go ahead and take this portion, put it through the hole, clip it down, and then you're good to go. So with that said, let's actually see how this wears on the wrist. All right, guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, really wears beautifully. Of course, if I get the the watch and my wrist too close to the camera, there's going to be a lot of lens distortion there that will kind of throw things off in terms of the scale. So what I like to do is keep it down here, and then what I'll do is I'll just tighten up the frame, and you guys can take a look with less distortion in terms of how centered this sits on my wrist. And I think it sits really beautifully. I think the strap could take some breaking in, but it's definitely way better than the kind of throwaway straps you'll remember with the SARB 017, which was basically cardboard with an alligator print on top of it. This is actually a really nice strap. And it has the leather backing as well, you know, underneath the canvas. It has some padding up towards the top and the upper portions. So it's really well structured and will keep the watch, of course, centered on the wrist as needed. And you can see that it sits really beautifully. So very nice. Let's actually get this off and swap it out to the next strap. All right, guys, as you can see, really nice in terms of the blue variation there. Quite lovely, conforms to the wrist really well. It's actually a bit softer and more supple than, of course, the textile hybrid strap you're going to see here. And let's go ahead and tighten it up. It definitely plays more into the vintage dressy aesthetic, especially with, of course, the Arabic numerals and the cathedral hands. This is definitely a look that is a little bit more dressy. You could see something, you know, with long sleeves, so this sliding underneath a cuff really beautifully. So I really do like the way that it looks on this blue strap, although I will say it does take away a bit from the monochromatic nature of seeing the dial, you know, pretty much perfectly, I'd say perfectly, but very closely matching the strap. There was something that was special about that, especially when it comes to the texture of this strap. You know, it just makes it feel very modern. And again, you know, this definitely a little bit more vintage, more clean aesthetic, more dressy. So I think that's nice that they were able to kind of plug into both of those aspects of the watch in terms of it being, you know, very dressy while also being quite outdoorsy, and giving you these two options, you know, right out of the box that really key into those. But we also do have a bracelet to try on. So let's go ahead and get that on next. All right, guys, that took a little bit longer than I had hoped, but it was totally worth it. It did take a little longer because I couldn't reuse the same spring bars. They were a little bit too thick to fit into this bracelet. Note to self, you're going to need more pressage with spring bars if you do want to run this bracelet. And the reason why is because this particular bracelet is actually originally made for the pre-pressage SARCs or SARCs, the SARW and SSA and SRP watches. It has solid links and end links, pin and collar connectors. It does taper from 20 down to 18, which is what we get here with the other strap options as well. So nice little taper, nothing too dramatic. It does have the push button twin trigger folding clasp that does have two holes for manual micro adjustment. If I get in very close, you can see a bit distorted. So what I'll do again is I'll keep my wrist just a bit away and just tighten this up here so we can get a closer look. So I think this is the winner, guys. Check that out. I think this is a wonderful layout. I do like, again, now pairing it with that metal bracelet really brings out the monochromatic nature of the dial, how it is, you know, very steely and silvery gray, which goes with everything. And then it really just makes the blue accents pop that much further, which is great. And of course, with all of these types of bezels, of course it's hard to ever get them perfect, but I'll try to make it as nice as I can visually for you guys to kind of breathe that in. Also, one thing I do prefer over, let's say, the regular bracelet that everybody kind of knows works for the Alpinist is that one has a bit more of a gap underneath the wrist. This one has a bit less. So very nice. OEM Seiko, signed. For me, what a great look. This is staying in the collection for quite some time. I really like that, and I like that it's a European exclusive. It just helps mix things up more, and of course adds a little bit of fun and drama in terms of acquiring different pieces. And although it doesn't have the the polished bezel to kind of tie into the polishing here, there's still plenty of beautiful polishing that ties in really nicely, I think, to the accents on the bracelet. So very, very cool. I dig it, guys. This is nice. So let's go ahead and get another look at that on the wrist. See how it lays, see how it drapes, it wears very, very nicely. I like it very much, but this has been a long video already, so let's get this off the wrist, set up for some loom shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. As you can see, again, not a lot of loom in terms of how much, or I should say, you know, how wide that it's applied, but it's applied really strong, and it's strong loom. It's Seiko's Lumabrite, does really well. But one thing I always like to work in is a low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. You know, you could be indoors, you know, walking underneath overhangs, the shade of a tree, or just spending time in your favorite automobile. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. And you guys can see it's an absolute show. Even if I get down into some harsh lighting conditions here, that would typically, you know, expose any type of defects within that finishing. You can see it's just gorgeous. My gosh. So super nice, guys. Even you can see, again, the legibility here is something that is a little extra, a little bit different. Look at that. Even with a minimum of just the light reflecting off of the ceiling, you can still see the steely blue. And of course, you're always going to be able to see those plops of loom, but it's nice to see that transitioning. And man, look at just how beautifully brushed this piece is, how uniform the light just glides over. And you can see even just, oh my gosh, look at that. That is just a light show. And then you do get even a slight sunburst. Check that out, where you're getting different quadrants of shadow and light playing off of each other. Quite dynamic. In the meantime, though, those cathedral hands are always just well in view. So I dig this. This thing is just, ooh, I liked it in the light, but I have to say in the low light and the transitional, it really shines, pun intended. And I dig this one a lot, guys. Closing thoughts: very sporty yet compact wearing. It's supremely versatile for everyday use. In terms of model variants, there are literally tons of Alpinist variations out there now, and seemingly more to come. So I will do, of course, my part and do a little comparo and kind of get these all next to each other for you guys. comment down below if that's something you'd be interested in, but I'm definitely working on putting that together for you all. In terms of comparable models, you know, you think things like the Zen 556, the Glycine Airman 18, and now you know, tons of different microbrand competitors kind of in that same space, putting out gentlemen's adventure watches paired with screw down crowns and classic styling. So you know, there's a lot of competition out there, but I'd say that this thing is really special. It's something that I haven't seen anybody else really be able to capture in the same way, right? This is a very iconic silhouette in terms of the Alpinist in general, and then you get this limited edition dial, which 3000 isn't really limited. I mean, for a Seiko, yeah, because I mean, if you've ever looked at the market on how many Seikos are still out, you know, knocking around, still able to be used and worn today, there are tons and tons of your favorite Seiko watches out there, well exceeding 3,000 examples. But this one, the dial, the texturing, it's just another level up. I mean, this texture is something that you might see comparable within like the Prospex LX line, in terms of that really fine, beautiful texturing. And those watches are, you know, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000. So for me, guys, the bottom line, this is really one of the best modern interpretations of that cult classic Seiko Explorer's watch that feels special beyond just its limited release status. It actually feels especially good based on its own qualities. So I really dig that. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked the video, please do hit like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.